So
that's what this is about,
so
right?
some smart someone.
This is the Luke Skywalker
yes,
version, right?
said, why not do it all with one hand?
And was that person you?
It was not me, but I would sure like to have some of the royalties for that.
His eyes are always dry because he never blinks. His tummy never growls because his belly is always full. His name is Griffin, and he's a scout.
Welcome to the Outdoors with ScoutTrek podcast.
Hello, ScoutTrek friends. We are at AERT, American Emergency Response Training, to talk about emergency preparedness, the Merit Badge. Part of our series on Merit Badge Makeover. Stay tuned. All right, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, come on
Let's
in.
step right in here and see what's going on.
All right.
I'd like to, before we sit down, Jody, I'd love to, for a conversation, I'd love to see your building and what's going on here, because there's always, usually in these sort of chats, a lot of interesting stuff that I see on the walls.
Well, these are some things about some of the equipment that we do. We're in the process in the next week delivering this fire truck to Murray County.
That fire truck right there
Yes.
is getting delivered.
Right. And the Virgin Islands, we've done fire training for the cruise ships there for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And we have some details of, this was a 107-foot ladder truck that was required by a new tire factory that went in Clarksville, and they had to have a certain reach and be able to do foam application at 100 feet in the air and things like that. So there's sometimes a lot more behind the scenes as to why certain trucks are the way they are, or equipment is needed.
Sure.
But we share this building with Cruise Computer Systems.
Shout out to Cruise there.
That's right. They're terrific, and we have our offices here. Although most of our work is done in the field, whether it's American Electric Power in West Virginia, all the way to Texas, or American Electric Power has competition, if you will, El Paso Electric and people like that, all the way to Texas, and we serve the same needs for them for emergency response training and the equipment for that.
So you do a decent amount of traveling then, sounds like, right?
Yes, a crazy amount of traveling,
Right.
yes. So all the dams up and down the upper and lower Colorado region, we work, we do that. And the Army Corps of Engineers are some of the federal contracts that we do at Mud Island in Memphis,
Sure.
but all the way out to Portland, Oregon, where the Dalles Dam is, and those are all part of customer base that we have served for many, many years. You can see this is just American Electric Power's service area, and there's 2,500 miles from Columbus, Ohio, all the way down to the Texas plants that are part of that system. So, yeah, travel is one of the challenges, but it's also what we do. So, bringing our training to the customer saves them travel efforts for their team. We send 2 instructors instead of them sending 15 people to us. So That's
there's-
how it works.
There are just certain types of training that a virtual environment just does not work as well as
Right.
hands-on.
You can't smell it, you can't feel it, you can only see it
Right.
on the screen. So what OSHA tells us is they have to demonstrate at least annually the skills they're expected to perform. So if that's spraying a water extinguisher or a powder extinguisher or firefighting foam, there's no way to do that on a screen. It has to physically be, done and
Right.
demonstrated. So yeah. So
right.
this is Corbin. He takes care of the inside operations here. So when someone calls direct, he is able to take care of their equipment issues typically, but also for the training aspects, sometimes he's just the first point of contact. Our rescue leader, trainer, is actually in Boise for the summer.
Okay.
And he has a little farm there, but that happens to be where the upper and lower Colorado region dams are, so it's convenient for him to be there and then just go for the training. So a lot of that flexibility is why there's a lot of interest in working with us, being part of this team. And then anyway, Corbin, you want to add anything to that?
No, it's pretty good.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hey, tell me about this board right here. This obviously caught my attention.
So, a good friend of ours who passed a couple years ago, Tom Mertens, was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, flew helicopters, and he passed away from cancer. But one of the things that he did in 22 and a half years traveling from Germany to West Point as a military academy instructor to South Carolina where he worked at Clemson, was he affiliated himself with the emergency services everywhere he went. And the first thing he would do was go trade a patch. When in the military, don't get real comfortable because you're going to get moved. And he and Karen were moved many times, and this was part of it. And some of these are well-known places. Some of them are very obscure that you'd never heard of before or again. But anyway, but that was just something that he accumulated. And several years before he died, he surprised us with this and said, I have so many that I really feel like you all need one of these. So so that's, and he worked for us in his retirement as well. Just a love for first responders, and unfortunately or fortunately, whatever the deal is, we buried him at the military academy at West Point a couple of summers ago.
Okay.
But we remember him every time we walk past here.
Every
So,
time.
Yep.
Patch trading is actually pretty popular in scouting.
Yep.
Each council, which is just a geographical area, has its own patch. And when scouts go to summer camp, as you can imagine, there's different troops from around the area and lots of times around the country that go to that summer camp. And scouts will bring their council patches and trade and
Well,
stuff.
let me show you something that we do like that. It's not a patch, but oftentimes when we show up, someone has a hat, and like today, as an example, I would give you this hat,
Okay.
but you can't give me yours because my head is too big, right? But I traded this, and we'll show you in my office here just a week ago. Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
All right.
So Speedway, Indiana, fire chief, we traded hats.
That's awesome.
And so that's the kind of thing that we do.
Yeah, you probably don't want this hat. It's a little worn and stuff. And so
So
But
this
anyway,
is mine. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is
Thank
yours.
you.
That is, don't tell anybody where you got it, but it might
Okay.
be somewhat obvious.
Yeah, it might be.
So,
Awesome.
our guys are also sort of multi-talented.
Okay.
Some of our folks map caves in their spare
Oh, wow.
time. Spelunkers.
Spelunkers.
Yeah, and they climb tall mountains and things like that as well. But they also could probably make way more money doing something else, but they enjoy what they do, and they enjoy travel, which you must. But anyway, so we're pretty blessed to have the crew that we have that work with us.
So AERT, American Emergency
Response training.
Response Training. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to sit down here, Jody. I appreciate your time and have a conversation about the Emergency Preparedness Merit Badge. And before we do that, I'm just seeing some really cool stuff on these walls, and I like to just kind of take it all in if we can. What's going on up here?
That's our crew. We spend a couple of weeks every year at the Hoover Dam. You might have heard of it.
Yes.
It's one of the 7 marvels of the world. And they have an emergency response team. And our group comes in and makes sure that they can demonstrate at least annually what the skills are for their fire brigade, for their emergency response, medical response, and even we call it open enrollment courses where people from all over the place want to go and be trained at the Hoover Dam. It's a tough ticket, let's call it that.
I'm sure.
And this is our crew that lead that particular class, or at least it's the crew that led it last year. There's a little give and take on that depending on other schedules, because as you might imagine, they're in pretty high demand.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's a kind of a name that you would pretty much immediately know. Oh, Hoover Dam, I got that one. So yeah, so there they are, decked out with their personal protective equipment, and as we'll talk about later, that's something that is a continuum. It always seems like somebody's coming up with something just a little bit better, whether it's fall protection or whether it's PPE from the right helmet or the right gloves or the boots, whatever that might be. What you have right now is probably going to be dated in a year or two, and it'll be
It's changing that fast.
It's an evolutionary process for sure. So. But in here, there's just some examples of a lot of the different hardware that we use, and there are many ways to do what we do safely, and we try to make sure it's site specific to the particular location. There are those out there that try to make it all generic, and there is a certain amount of that's reasonable, but our niche in the market is to try to listen to the customer. What are you trying to accomplish? What are the standards you need to comply with? And then we'll work together to help them get there.
Sounds good. Well, let's sit down and have a conversation. What do you say?
Sounds good.
All right, so we're getting started here, and I'm here with Jody Rood of American Emergency Response Training.
There you
right?
go. It just rolls right off your tongue, doesn't it?
AERT.
Yeah, there you go.
And we're going to talk, as I mentioned, about the Emergency Preparedness Merit Badge as part of our special series, Merit Badge Makeover. But before we do that, Jody's a good sport. Go to church with Jody. He attends the little coffee bar there at church, and the coffee is always so delicious and lovely and hot, and that's what we're having here. So we're going to get started here. Before we do that, I like to kind of have a little bit of an icebreaker.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yes, and play a little game. And some of this you may know, some of it you may not know, but today we're talking about merit badges. So any idea how many merit badges? Now, you don't have any kids that were in scouting, or you have any sort of, I know you came out a few years ago.
Eagle Scouts from our church.
Yeah.
but I always just saw them at the very end when they were having their
ceremony.
Their ceremony.
Sure. Okay.
But I know there's projects and there's things
Yeah.
they have to do for their community, but that's about the end of
Okay.
it.
So there are ranks that scouts go through on their journey to Eagle Scout. And part of that, there's just a ton of requirements that they have to do in training, service projects, things like that. But there's also merit badges. So there are a total of 139 merit badges.
They
don't have to.
I was going to guess that.
Okay. That was your number, right?
139. It was in my head there. Yes.
And of those 139, they have to do 21. They have to do 21.
That seems reasonable.
14 of the 21 are mandated. They are what we call Eagle required. So it's like you have to do these 14 if you're going to earn Eagle Scout rank.
Okay.
You have to, beyond those 14, you have to earn up to 21. So you have some optional ones, like electives in college,
Yeah,
right?
we got you.
But then you actually have some scouts every year that they make it their goal to earn all of the 139. And we're talking about things from movie making to chemistry to wilderness survival, lots of different, those kids that do, shout out to those scouts that earn all of those. They're very well-rounded individuals. The magnitude of experiences that they have had in their scouting career to go through all that is just amazing. So before we get started, we're going to play a game, 2 games actually, Merit Badge Mashup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you a requirement from one of those merit badges. 139 merit badges. Each merit badge has anywhere from 10 to 20 requirements. And within those requirements, there are like little sub-requirements. So you may have 1A, 1B, 1C, etc. So out of 139, all those, you're probably talking about thousands of merit badge requirements. I'm going to read you one.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair.
So,
I
and
think.
I went through and picked these out specifically for you.
I can hardly wait.
And I don't know outside of emergency preparedness, Jody. Jody, I don't really know what your background is, quite honestly, other than serving great coffee on Sunday mornings at church.
So
we may expose some of that.
Yeah, I can tell you that way back when, my first experience with emergency response was, I was a freshman at Johnson University, and I was on the basketball team. As a freshman, I'm sort of a practice dummy. But anyway, so we're done with practice one day, and the guy across the hall in the dorm, his beeper went off. And I said, Ron, what is that? Ron Proctor, you may know from Woodlawn. He said, well, there's a fire, and I'm leaving for that fire. Would you like to go? I said, well, as long as we can stop at Burger King on the way back. And so we drove 10 minutes to a fire, and we got there, and there were flames rolling out the front of the house, and
Wow.
And the fire truck was just arriving. And I said, well, what do I do? He said, just do whatever they tell you. And someone told me, pull that hose off the back of the truck. And here I am in my basketball gear, and they put on the equipment, and they charged the hose with water, and inside they went, and next thing you know, that flame had been turned into steam and then smoke, and then the fire was out.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool. So I asked more and more questions of what was involved in that, and a few months later, I was in initial training because even though I was still in college, they worked on the weekends, as a lot of emergency responders do, whether you're in the National Guard or you're in the volunteer fire service or the rescue squad. They have to work around schedules that everybody has. And so that's the way it started way back in 1979.
Oh, wow.
Woo.
Wow. So did you wear bell bottoms to the fire?
I may well have, yes.
Oh, no, you were in your jersey. Okay.
Yeah, I just had on sweatpants, and I mean, I was still wet from coming out of running the suicides at the end of practice.
Right.
You know, and so here we went, you know.
Okay.
And, you know, that's sort of how it began. And eventually what I was able to do was go to work for the Rural Metro Corporation, and they paid for me to go to school. They paid for me to go to the National Fire Academy and go through the series of classes that prepare you for to be an officer, to be a lieutenant and a captain and a chief, which I progressed through those things. And then ultimately became involved in the training because I was a captain over the industrial park over in the east part of Knox County. And they have fire brigades, and those fire brigades require training and equipment, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
So that's your story.
Yeah, and I'm sticking to it.
And you're sticking to it.
Yeah.
That's good. So that's some great experience there. And I assume along the way there's been training, certifications,
Oh my,
and
yes.
tons of that sort of stuff.
So early on, one of the things that as a progressive fire service in our county, Knox County, they require us to also have medical training. So during the first year that I was employed, it's mandated that you become an EMT. So not only do you do your 12 shifts a month, but you also went to Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes through the state to become an emergency medical technician.
Right.
And so I did that as well, and you know, have been an EMT for the last 30 years. And I think the interesting thing with all of that is you don't really think about it while you're doing it, but in every aspect of life, whether you're driving to the grocery store and you see smoke coming out of a car, or somebody gets cut and you're like, okay, here's what we do, here's what we don't do. It just prepares you for life, whether or not you're responding to some emergency, or it just happens that you're at a baseball field, or you're, you know, somewhere in your daily life. So, and that's, I think, ultimately what a lot of these badges do for you. They verify that if this happens, what would I do?
Right.
And what should I do? Or maybe more importantly, what should I not do?
Yeah.
So as we talked about a couple of years ago when I was working on the fire badge, wrong term, but anyway, at the campground, the first thing I told the kids was, don't set yourselves on fire. Okay, this is a good place to start.
Prevention.
Good point of reference. Prevention. And as we teach at the power plants and chemical plants and on the cruise ships, that's where we start. Do no harm. Don't
Right.
make it worse.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you do that, then oftentimes you've got a fighting chance to fix the problem without it being a terrible, terrible outcome.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a good sport. You're up to this game, I guess. A little
We'll
bit.
see, won't we?
Right. You're not being graded. Okay. So you do win a prize at the end, though. You know what it is?
No, I'm afraid to ask.
Honor, respect, and glory. That's it.
That's enough, isn't it?
It is.
That's enough.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to read a requirement, and you're going to tell me what merit badge it is. Okay. And you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because I didn't give you the list of merit badges.
I don't have the
like
139
139 multiple choices. So, that's okay. We're just having fun here. All right. Explain, and this is verbatim, explain what absolute dating and relative dating are. Now, this has nothing to do with romantic relationships when it says dating. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint.
Okay. Absolute dating. I'm assuming we're talking about how old is that rock, or that piece of wood, or
Are you
that
looking
tree.
at me for affirmation?
Yes, I am. Am I wrong?
Yes, that is correct.
Wow! Right off the bat.
So the name of the merit badge is,
tree rings.
That's pretty granular. I like that, but it's archaeology.
Okay.
Archaeology Merit Badge. That was good.
Well, good.
All right.
You know, just as an aside, our friend Tom Mertens
Yeah.
taught archaeology and geology at West Point.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was
Oh,
a
wow.
helicopter driver, but he also taught dirt, as he said.
Cool.
So yeah, there's that.
Okay. Here's another one. You tell me which of the merit badges, 139 it is. Here's the requirement. Explain how an airfoil generates lift, specifically noting Bernoulli's principle.
Well, I mean, for anybody that's a pilot, which I am, that's how lift happens, and that's how an object leaves the earth.
Okay.
So now the badge would be called Principles of Aviation.
Right. That's very technical. It's much simpler than that. Aviation.
Okay.
Right. Just the Aviation Merit Badge.
Nice. So I got.
You're
I
on a
got one-
roll.
I'm butter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. On a roll.
Yeah.
I like that. Can I use
You-
that?
you may use that.
You didn't trademark that or anything.
No,
I'm going to use that.
I got that somewhere, probably on a Delta flight somewhere.
Okay, here we go. This is right down your field. This is like a gimme. You probably play golf, right?
I do.
You know what a gimme is. All right, here we go. Let's see. I've got.
It's inside the leather.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Using a carabiner and a rappel device, attach a rappel rope to your harness. What merit badge is that?
Rappelling.
Climbing.
So that's
Which is
that would be ascending, and
Right.
rappelling would be descending.
That's right.
So I was just on the opposite end of that.
Yeah, we'll give you that one as
Okay,
well. Okay,
all right.
Here we go. Demonstrate and explain 5 aircraft carrier catapult cruise signals. And in that description, one of the words is actually in the name of the merit badge title.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I would say catapulting.
It's actually signs, signals, and codes. So in that merit badge, yeah, you learn like semaphore sign signaling. You learn Morse code.
And
some
in our
really cool
business,
stuff.
we also learn simple signs as to how to land helicopters
Okay.
when there's an emergency to make sure they don't run into power lines.
What is
or-
that sign?
Well, it just, you know.
You just guide them in.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Okay, good.
So I got that one wrong.
That's good. Okay, now this other game, very similar, merit badge mystery. So in this one, I'm going to ask you to give me a specific answer about the merit badge, okay? So here we go. This will make sense when I'm reading it. Now, you said you are a pilot. So we'll see if you get this one here. Requirement number 2 of the Aviation Merit Badge, we talked about, requires scouts to build an FPG-9 model airplane. What does the acronym FPG represent? And what does the number 9 represent in the acronym FPG-9?
It probably has 9 cubic feet of air.
So they got to build
wing.
this. The
Yeah.
scouts got to build this.
Yeah, out of
okay?
balsa wood, I'm guessing. Maybe. It would be a glider.
Yeah, there you go.
or
There-
maybe-
there's the G.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it's not propelled by a propeller and a rubber band, right? That would be the next step.
It is a foam plate glider.
Of course it is. If it was 50 years ago, it would have been
A
balsa wood.
which you
Yeah.
can get at Cracker Barrel. And the number 9 represents that foam plate glider must be a 9-inch plate. Standard 9-inch plate, right?
Yes, I have a visual on that now.
All right, we'll do, what do you think? One more? Is that cool?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Which one should I give you? Okay, here's one. Okay, Camping Merit Badge, which is an Eagle required merit badge. Requirement 9 of the Camping Merit Badge requires scouts to camp for a minimum number of 20 nights at designated scouting activities or events. Scouts may complete this requirement in 4 different types of shelters. So they can choose one of 4, right? 3 of those 4 are a tent, a lean-to, and a 3-sided shelter with an open front. What is the 4th type of shelter that they can?
A cabin.
No.
a teepee.
No, but I like that. I think we should add that.
An igloo.
No, but I like that one too.
That would be
I've
be winter capping.
I've known scouts who've built an igloo and slept in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can give you a hint. You want to call phone a friend?
Yes, I do.
Okay, he's right down the hall there. So I'll give you a hint. This is kind of a giveaway. It has to do with trees. Kind of 2 trees usually.
A lean-to?
No, that was one of the 3 I mentioned. And it hangs on trees.
Oh, a hammock.
Hammock. Yep.
Well, yeah, that was right on the tip of my tongue.
Of course it
along.
was. Of
Yes.
course it was.
And you would be in a hammock so that the pesky spiders and things would have a disadvantage getting to you
There's
while you
that.
slept.
If you have a mosquito net, if you're in an area where there's a lot of mosquitoes and bugs and stuff, you can do that.
Bangladesh
Not
or
all
someplace
hammocks
like that.
have. Yeah, not all hammocks or down in Louisiana,
Ooh.
Mississippi. A lot of hammocks have mosquito nets. Some don't have those. A lot of scouts just like to hang in a hammock. So
Yeah.
All right, before we get started, you were talking about, I just saw something here on our table.
Yeah.
You were talking about, when we came in, how equipment gets outdated very quickly, right?
Sure.
And I think this right here probably is to that point. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me tell you about
That's a
this.
fire hose,
So this is
whatever.
a nozzle that is used for structural firefighting.
Okay.
And we have used a version of this for about the last 100 years.
You see those in the movies.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you see them on fire trucks to
Yep.
this very day. And this one is sort of a high-end version because, as you can see, it says automatic on there.
Okay.
And it's engineered so that whatever pressure comes in here, I'm in the weeds a little, that it will give you the best possible flow, okay? And as always, traditionally it requires a hand to hold and a hand to operate.
2 hands.
2 hands,
Okay.
okay?
I think I know where this is going.
Which is how God designed us. We
Right.
have, in fact, 2 hands.
Right.
But if I happen to slip, trip, or fall, which are things we try to avoid in safety,
Right.
it'd be handy for me to have a hand to protect myself with.
And
So
that's what this is about,
so
right?
some smart someone,
This is the Luke Skywalker
yes,
version, right?
said, why not do it all with one hand?
And was that person you?
It was not me, but I would sure like to have some of the royalties for that. But that gives me a free hand so that I'm pulling this. I've got the hose coming.
Yeah.
And other than making this simple adjustment, I can control this and it gives me a free hand. So for 100 years or more, we had that. And in the last several years, we have this design, which why did we not think of? Maybe the technology wasn't there. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
There's obviously a lot of pressure that's coming in through, right?
About 100 pounds. Yeah.
Can one hand manage that?
Absolutely.
Holding on to
yeah.
it, really?
But it's a
Okay.
team sport, remember?
It
So
is a
you
team
have
sport.
someone behind you
Right.
that's also holding the hose.
Okay.
So all you're doing, you're the trigger guy, as we like to say. You point at the
Right.
target and you shoot it. And the people behind you, they're holding the hose so that you don't have to struggle with that. It's like I said, it's a team sport.
Okay. Could I trade this hat for this?
Yes, and $700.
And $700 to boot. That's really cool. And you said this is gaining in popularity,
Yeah,
right?
in
Especially
Europe.
overseas.
In Europe, it is the rage.
Does it
so
come
to
with a
speak.
holster?
Ooh.
Now that we could invent, right?
Now you're talking.
We got to make some money off of it somehow.
Now
right?
you're talking. Yeah.
I like that.
Yep. But that's a good example of how we like to joke, say the fire service is 100 years unimpeded by progress.
All right.
So, by definition, this is progress. Other progress would be the jacket and pants and helmet.
Yeah.
And all that stuff that we call PPE or turnout gear has a protective factor that's better than ever before because technology allows the new materials that gear is made of to just do a better job of protecting us and tolerating the heat and the bad things that come from byproducts of fire.
The same amount of pressure, I assume, is going to come out of both of these?
Yeah,
it's just that
absolutely.
one is one-handed and
Yep,
one's, okay.
that's correct.
And what is that pressure?
100 PSI.
PSI. So I would not want to water the rose garden with this.
Well, now you could, but what you need to do is the nozzles work, we say right for reach and left for life. So you
Okay.
want to turn it to the left and it give you a wide
Wider
fog
spread.
pattern.
Yeah.
And then you might use it on the roses.
And then back away about 200
But if you
feet.
wanted to be 100 feet away and rain a little bit on them, then you could use it the right for reach. Yeah, absolutely. That's a
Correct.
good question. Sure. And from a safety perspective, that's why they're adjustable, because the further you are from the fire, the safer you are. And in our business, it all starts with safety.
Right.
You know,
Gotcha.
distance from the problem equals additional safety.
Okay. Before we get started, that's good stuff. I mean, we haven't even talked about the merit badge yet. We're already getting some really good stuff. I saw this and grabbed it right quick. I know you're a humble man, Jody, but this is pretty impressive right here. Is this an Oscar? What was this from Yentl? Were you in with Barbara Streisand? I don't know if she was in there. No.
That would be BS. We call Barbara, yes. And no, I was not a lentil or a yentl.
Yentl. It's an obscure movie.
Yeah,
but,
no, that's an award for working with the National Safety Council for my entire career. And I was nominated by others, my peer group, if you will, and they typically have one person that gets a Lifetime Achievement Award
Wow.
annually. Not every year, but most years. And it was my turn. And as I said earlier, the thing for that is that can't happen if the people you're around have bad outcomes. If they're consistently getting hurt and doing dumb things, then you're not providing much leadership and much of a good example. So on the day that I was given that, that's really all I could think to say was to thank you for the people that had come along with me for the last 25 years, that had made good decisions and helped others back at their fire department or their power plant or whatever they have exposure to, making really good decisions. And prevention is always going to lead the way.
So that was 2014. Where was that? Was it
San Diego, California,
All right.
and there were about 8,000 people at the National Safety Council conference in the room at that time, which was kind of intimidating. I had to wear a suit and tie, that's not a normal thing for me, but I was able to find one in the closet, and it just was sort of a culmination of a lot of years. The particular part of the Safety Council that I've been involved in relates to the power industry, and so I've chaired that committee for a few years, and we sort of all take our turns. But since COVID, I have retired from the Safety Council, which I'm in my 60s now, so it was time to pass the baton to someone else, and they continue to do well.
Good. Well, congratulations.
Well, thank
11
you.
years later, congratulations.
Well, thank you, thank you.
So we talked a little bit about your background. Before we get into the merit badge requirements, tell me about AERT. I mean, what was its origin? Was it, was this something you just kind of decided to start that just on a whim? Was it something that just evolved over time that you kind of were chewing on the idea?
So in the early days, I was in charge of a industrial facility in eastern Knox County that had facilities like Bike Athletic and Sea Ray Boats and ACOM Panasonic, and name brands that people would know, and they have their own emergency response teams, and it was my responsibility to see that they were trained initially and then annually that they could use a fire extinguisher, or they could stop someone's bleeding, or do CPR, or whatever the emergency called for. And sometime in that process, we at our work had an opportunity to try out for a international training deal that was Rotterdam International Safety Center, so Rotterdam as in Holland. And we had to do a physical test, and we had to do several things. And fortunately, I was one of 15 people from our company across the country that got to go to this 2-week training in Holland. And that's kind of what set the hook for me.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, it was a cool trip.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
sure.
But after
Did
that,
you wear wooden shoes?
I brought some home, actually.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
I got the country right, didn't I?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. And they don't have OSHA over there, so some of the things that was involved in that training we would not ever do here. Like, for instance, putting petrol, as they call it,
Petrol.
in a baggie.
My wife says petrol.
Yes, in a baggie.
Yeah.
And seal the baggie, and if the fire's not quite large enough, they just toss in an extra large gallon-sized baggie of petrol, and
Okay.
guess what happens? The fire gets larger.
It does get larger, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And so there were times when we had, the right equipment, and then there were other times that their teaching method was, if you don't have the right equipment, what do? You withdraw. You back away and reevaluate and figure out what's reasonable, what's safe, what's appropriate, and then make a new plan. And that's kind of when preparedness doesn't work. Then you have to make a plan. Is it reasonable? Do I have the tools to safely address this, or do I just need to back away and not get anyone else hurt?
So the trip to Holland, what year was that roughly?
85 or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That really was the catalyst.
That's what started the whole process. And after that, we started with the company. We started doing national training for like American Electric Power and Arkema, or as Autofina at the time, and the cruise lines and those sorts of things. And for a while, I did that as part of the big company. But then September 11th came along, and everybody sort of reevaluated how they did what they did. And in our situation, what they did was they brought the 100 top managers, and we had about 10 or 12,000 employees at the time, so I was somewhere in that top 100, and they invited us to come back and to do what we had been doing previously. And that was my opportunity to say, do I want to do that, or do I want to continue doing the training? And so I sent contacts to 10 of our regular customers, and said, here's where I am. Would you like me to continue? Or and 10 out of 10 said, please continue, because what you're doing is a required thing for OSHA and the NFPA standards. So we have to do it anyway. We already know you, and we have a track record with you. So that's how it started for our business. 25 years later,
25 years.
here we are.
Yeah.
So, and that was training only back in those days.
And you've expanded. So you still do training?
Yeah.
Right.
About 350 days a year.
Oh wow. Okay. But in addition to the training, you also deal with equipment and selling equipment, I guess?
The rescue equipment, the hazardous materials equipment, the fire equipment, and even fire trucks, which we sell at this point in the proceedings. On a good year, we'll deliver a half a dozen or 8 or 10 on a, but again, what people don't really think about is those are rolling toolboxes. They're full of the equipment that the responders need, whether it's a vehicle entrapment and the jaws of life that people talk about, or something's on fire, or something's leaking and we need to take care of the hazardous material aspect of it. Those trucks, generally speaking, are carrying tools, but most of the time when they leave the fire station, it's none of those. It's a medical event. About 70% of the time when they're dispatched, they're going to take care of a medical. It could be a car wreck, could be a heart attack, could be difficulty breathing. So that's why one of those 139 badges is first aid, right?
That's right.
See what I did there?
Yeah, that was good.
And so that's a thing where when they're doing their badges, they may say, you know what, this is my first thing, and I probably want to be a cardiac surgeon, you know, or a EMT, somewhere in between those things. And they're real valuable because if the EMT doesn't keep the person alive until they get to the cardiac surgeon,
Right.
nothing matters, right?
That's true.
Because DOA, he can't fix that, or she can't fix that.
Yeah.
So that's why the first responders are near and dear to our hearts.
All right. Thanks for sharing your story and your personal story and AERT's story. Let's jump into the merit badge, okay?
Okay.
So the Emergency Preparedness Merit Badge, as I mentioned, is actually Eagle required. Okay, so you must take this merit badge if you're going to earn Eagle rank. Here is kind of in a nutshell what the BSA describes this as. Scouts are often called upon to help because they know first aid and they know about the discipline and planning needed to react to an emergency situation. Earning this merit badge helps a scout to be prepared. That's the scout motto, be prepared, by learning the actions that can be helpful and needed before, during, and after an emergency.
Sure.
All right. So there are, and again, these have a lot of sub ones. There are 10 requirements, and we're just going to hit these. Some will camp out on a little bit longer than others, if that's okay.
Sure.
But the very first one, and I think there's a reason that it's first, is that they have to actually earn another merit badge to earn this one, and that's the first aid merit badge. They have to earn that.
Yep.
I mean, does that make sense? Thumbs up on...
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's one thing to recognize someone's bleeding. It's another thing to do something about it. And, you know, it's not for everybody. It's a scary thing. It's, you know, especially if you hurt yourself. But at the end of the preparedness comes action, and are we prepared to take action? And so that it does make sense that we use the American Red Cross, but we've also used the National Safety Council and others, but they all refer back to the same code of federal regulation that makes sure that we have a consistency across all of our 50 states, so that if a first responder is a first responder in Tennessee, it would be the same set of skills and expectations for, let's say, Indiana or Ohio or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first one. Makes sense, being able to respond with some knowledge at first. Of course, we don't expect scouts to, you know, to suture up wounds or anything like that. A lot of it is, if you're the first one on the scene, you may have, you know, a bottle of water to help somebody who might be dehydrated. You might have, you know, a bandana to maybe at least stuff a wound to help out in some way until the professionals get there.
Airway, breathing, and circulation, the ABCs. If they, as a first responder, can address those obvious things and you know, keep them alive until the next level of proficiency gets there, they've done their job.
All right. Number 2, emergency situations. So there's a few subparts to this, but here's the first one in 2A. Discuss with your counselor, and the counselor is just somebody who is who has some authority to talk about the merit badge and sign off that, you know, what the scout did on this, you know, makes sense, and they have proved proficiency on it. When you came out in, oh goodness, was it 2020, I guess, that year, you came out to a camp that we had, our troop, during the COVID year, and a lot of things were being canceled.
We were 6 feet apart.
Yes, we were 6 feet apart.
Of course.
And a lot of things were being canceled, and that included summer camps for scouting.
Right.
So we just felt like, well, let's see if it's okay if we continue to meet and have a summer camp of some sort. There were no summer camps close by for us to go to. So we checked with our local council to make sure that we were even allowed to do that, because we wanted to be in compliance. And they said, that's fine as long as you do and you follow the protocol. So we said, well, we didn't want to skip a summer camp, because summer camp is what really, in many cases, draws scouts in, and it keeps their interest.
Sure.
So we said, it's going to be a lot of work, but let's create our own summer camp. Let's go through and we'll have 7 or 8 different merit badges and create a custom summer camp. So we found a local campground. We brought in people to teach different merit badges. Jody was one of those, and I don't recall if it was fire or if it was emergency preparedness, but you came in.
I think it was fire,
Was it
because we
fire
talked
safety?
about
The fire safety
portable
merit badge,
extinguishers
yeah.
and the fire triangle
Okay.
and those fundamentals.
So
yeah.
you came in and taught that, and that's interesting because you're talking about emergency preparedness, and when you came in, it was for an emergency, which was a pandemic rather than a traditional emergency that you might think of. But here's what 2A says: discuss with your counselor the aspects of emergency preparedness, and including your discussion the kinds of questions that are important to ask yourself as you consider each of these. And these are the 5 aspects, and I assume these are kind of global. I don't think they're specific to BSA: prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and as we think about preparedness, what we also do is we anticipate what the situation is. For instance, a brush fire, if we've heard that it's extremely dry and there's a brush fire in the Smokies, that would clue us in that it could also happen nearby where we are. And we think about, the kinds of fuels and what would we do if. So you're almost tabletopping what could happen here, okay? And in each of the scenarios in life, we're thinking about, okay, we're getting ready to go on a trip. All right, we want to make sure that we're safe as we travel. We're going to wear our seat belts. We're going to make sure the car has good tires and brakes. Those are the preparedness things that we're always trying to size up and figure out, is it reasonable that what we're getting ready to do is going to have a good outcome? And if not, then you get into the other part of it. Well, what can I do to help make it better? And it could be first aid, it could be a fire response thing, it could be a lot of things. Most of those things end up being commonsensical, if that makes, we can anticipate, you look back at it afterwards and say, well, we could anticipate that we were kayaking and somebody fell out of the kayak. Okay, so we have a PFD on so that they're still floating even though they're not in the boat anymore, as an example. So appropriate selection of PPE, personal protective equipment, maybe a helmet that went along with that, whatever that might be. So yeah, that's the whole preparedness piece.
So I guess if you're doing some sort of activity like a rock climbing an event or whitewater rafting or backcountry, there comes with that a certain amount of risk that might happen.
And benefit.
Yeah, and benefit, right.
Right.
But I guess it's preparing is there are emergencies that happen, even in events that maybe don't carry those sorts of risk, right? It's something we actually say to our scouts is, if you're only prepared for the expected, you're really not prepared.
Right, because that should be your baseline. You're going to go on a 10-mile hike. Okay, well, the day before, you should be hydrating, and you should be eating the appropriate amount of calories, and you should make sure that your boots are dry and appropriate for the hike, and those sorts of things. But that's where it starts, not where it.
That keeps those emergencies from even happening.
Yes,
Yeah.
back to the prevention piece.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on here, we're on 2B. This is where scouts are asked to prepare a charter spreadsheet and demonstrate their understanding of each aspect of emergency preparedness listed in requirement 2A, which is the prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. And it gives several scenarios here to talk about. And I'm curious if there are any of these that you would add to. So they're asked to dig in and talk about, number one, home stovetop or oven fire. I mean, that's something that would be, I would think, very easy it's relevant for scouts, because it's not something that it's like, when you look at some of these boating or water accident or toxic chemical spills, it's probably less likely scouts are going to encounter a situation like that. I mean, they could, but a home stovetop or oven fire, I mean, that's a common appliance in everybody's home.
Absolutely. And you think about, well, what activity on the stove is likely to end up having that problem? Well, grease, right? I mean, that's what we typically think about. And where are the exposures? Well, the cabinet above that's typically made out of wood. There's an extinguisher. How should I use it? Should I use it? In our cruise line industry training, in the galleys, the big industrial kitchens, we teach them to put fire blankets on to smother them out. And you might have seen in cases where they talk about, well, put the lid on it. Well, if you could do that safely, by all means, because that takes the oxygen away. But oftentimes, our first response makes things worse. If we grab an extinguisher and we spray that flaming pan of grease and we're too close, then we're going to splatter it and create, a bigger issue than we. So we used the right tool, but we didn't use the tool correctly.
Right.
So yeah, that's without question one of the biggest challenges, because what we're doing in all of this is, when it shifts into response mode, then we've got this download of adrenaline that we're trying to, harness so that we don't make things worse. Do no harm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Home flammable liquid fire.
Yeah.
That would be like the grease fire you're talking
Absolutely.
about, right?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, gas leak in or near a home or with outside cooking.
Okay. So gas, when I ask you, to tell me about gas, are you going to tell me, is that a vapor or is that a liquid?
I would say it's a vapor.
Okay, but oftentimes people think of gasoline.
Well, that's
right?
true, yeah.
Because that's what I have in the garage in a proper container, or that's what mom or dad are putting into the vehicle, at the gas station. But oftentimes we're thinking here as a vapor that is escaping, like as in natural gas, or the vapor that comes off of gasoline. And then you get into these fundamentals of, only vapors burn, so liquids have to change to a vapor in the sense of gasoline or kerosene or diesel fuel, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? You have to find a way to shut off the source with a pressurized gas leak, not gasoline being liquid. So yeah, it's
so it sounds like
it's a real thing.
We're talking about Merit Badge Makeover. This is actually something, maybe that should be reworded to say vapor gas leak.
Sure.
Okay, BSA, there's our first call out there. We'd like to see that. I think that provides better clarity.
Yeah, you need some clarity there, because gasoline has a vapor because only vapors burn. But if as it's worded there, I mean, there might be some, I wonder what exactly they're talking about there.
And we had, I remember a few years ago, there was a home in West Knoxville that just
Blew up.
blew up, right? I mean, just completely.
So it's filled with natural gas that a lot of times, most of the time is safe. We use it to heat our water. We use it for our furnaces. We use it to cook with. But if we have a leak, talking about heat, fuel, and oxygen and the chemical chain reaction, at some point you have a lot of fuel, but it's not in the right mixture. But unfortunately, if you use this room as an example, it's full of propane vapor or natural gas. At some point, it gets in the right range and somebody turns a light switch on or whatever and adds a spark, an ignition source, and that's what happens. And that can be as simple as a thermostat clicking on your home HVAC or something like
Static
that.
electricity coming out of the clothes in the dryer?
Absolutely.
Could that do it?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Certainly. So,
Huh.
yep.
Okay, food poisoning.
We're
You ever-
against,
you ever
we're,
had food
against, we're
poisoning?
against it.
Yeah, we're
it's
definitely against
That's
it.
a bad day. Yeah. And certainly that's one of those things, if you tie that into one of those 20 days of overnight camping, you don't want to probably have potato salad that you had from the day before on the day after when you're hiking out. I'll stop
Right.
and have some potato salad.
Right.
No. So again, common sense goes a long way, but boy, if you really like potato salad, you might be thinking that it's worth the risk. It's not worth the risk.
No. Have you ever had food poisoning?
I have.
you?
I
Not
have.
pleasant.
It is not pleasant at all.
Yeah.
No.
All right. What about automobile crash? I mean, that's something. I mean, especially around here, you travel Alcoa Highway. You're going to see something.
And it was one for many years, and maybe so still, one of the most deadly corridors in the whole state.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but back in the day, we didn't even have seat belts.
Yes.
And then they mandated that you would have seat belts, and then it was with the shoulder harness as well. And people were being ejected as rollover accidents happened and things like that. Airbags have made most collisions survivable. And cars are made out of plastic today instead of metal like they used to be, so they weigh less, and that changes the impact as well. So,
Do you think, now that's something, as opposed to gas leak, automobile crashes, something I think scouts probably could encounter, at least as a bystander traveling by, seeing a car accident, with some frequency. Do you think, speak to how you decide when to engage and get involved in a potential rescue, or at least helping out till the first responders get there, versus knowing when to have some discipline and staying out of the way?
that's the age-old question, because when you see somebody in need, our gut reaction is to help. I mean, that's what we're wired up to do. But the vehicle's on fire.
Yeah.
And I personally had an event several years ago, and I'm traveling to West Virginia to a power plant, and a woman drove past me. All the vehicles were slowed because of another accident about a mile up, and she ran into the back of a semi with her brake lights never came on. And I thought, well, here I am. I've been teaching this for all these years, and now I'm the first responder.
Right.
And so I was about 150 feet away. I turned my truck to block so no one else would run into us, and I hurried up there. The car was underneath the back of the semi, and so I couldn't get to the door. So I got to the back door. I opened it up. The first thing I saw was a child restraint seat. and your gut just, oh
Yeah.
my word, Lord, help. Hopefully there's not a baby in here. And the powder was such a cloud that you couldn't even see in the front row. And so I just called out.
What was the powder
from the airbag.
Oh, okay.
That was,
Yeah.
you know, and I said, is anyone alive? And a little bitty hand stuck her fist back over with a thumbs up, and she said, I'm alive. And within seconds, you heard a woof. And a woof in emergency situations is bad because that means a fire just
Something's
ignited.
Yeah.
And so she had then, the oil and the gasoline and everything from the engine had ignited. And about that same moment, the truck she hit, the driver came and is tapping on me like, is there anything I can do? And I said, get me in a fire extinguisher. And you've seen on trucks, fire extinguisher inside,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
he came back in 30 seconds or less, and he had the fire extinguisher in this hand and the hose for it in this hand. He said, I hope you know how to do this.
Oh boy.
And I thought, well, as a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah.
You know, because fortunately I'd done hundreds and hundreds of days of extinguisher training. So I screwed it together, ran around the other side, and put it out with just the last little bit of the powder. I mean, it was a small, like you would have in your kitchen almost. And as I was getting it out, I looked over, and on the opposite side, there were some bystanders that had laid the car seats down, and they were pulling her out of the back seat. And she had multiple injuries. Her legs, both legs were broken in multiple places, and she had an evisceration, it's a medical term, where her skin had hit the back of the truck and peeled back, but she was still talking.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, when that was once in a 25-year career that actually happened, and I'm in the moment with it.
Right.
And but it still took a team to solve that problem. By the time the ambulance got there 5 or 10 minutes later, she was out, away from the vehicle, the fire was out. We had handled it.
And had you not been there, that fire could have obviously.
She would have died.
Yeah.
Yeah, if 2 or 3 minutes difference, she would have died.
Now, not to be overly critical, but I think it's prudent to talk about this. That truck driver should have known how to use that fire extinguisher.
He happened to be, as luck would have it, he was a reserve or a relief driver.
Okay.
He had retired 5 years before, you know, whatever. So he was just, they were busy, they had an extra run, and he was glad to do it. But you're right, that's 100% correct. At least he knew where it was.
True, and he brought it to.
And he brought it to me.
But it does speak to the point that it's like in my essentials bag that scouts need to carry with them. One of the things that's supposed to be in there is your first aid kit. It's one thing to have it. It's another thing is like you got to know how to use it, right?
Well, and all of this is problem solving, because one of the things as a medical first responder is you don't want to abandon your patient.
Mm-hmm.
But if your patient is going to be consumed in a fire in a matter of moments, it's a pretty easy choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to go put the fire out, you know. But I mean, it could happen to any of us. It could, you know, we could be the next one, you know, today. And oftentimes, you know, what I wanted to say too is it was completely preventable. She was on her cell phone as she 55 miles an hour just drove right past me, and here's all these trucks that are stopped, I mean, dead in the road. But she...
Did you see that, or did she admit it later?
No, it came out later in the investigation. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So
no, all I saw with her was just a blue streak just went by me.
So don't be a distracted driver, right?
She was driving a Subaru, which was one of the earliest cars that had multiple airbags. Mm-hmm. So you can make it a thought process rightfully so, that the vehicle she was in might have saved her life also.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a Subaru salesman,
Right.
but
Sure.
you want to have every advantage you possibly can have. And most vehicles now, maybe all vehicles now, have airbags. So, woo, scary.
You know, you said something that I wanted to kind of circle back around, which I agree with, which is our instinct with most people is you want to help, you want to do something. Unfortunately, what I think we're seeing today, especially with young people, I hate to call it young people, but you see this with adults too, is there's a situation where some sort of action is needed. And then rather than reaching for tools, people are
They want a
video. And you could see a situation where somebody needs help desperately. And they're more interested in capturing that moment.
Getting some clicks.
Right. And that's unfortunate.
We saw that last month with the violence in Cincinnati that happened in the middle. First of all, Mom and Dad always said, nothing good happens after midnight, okay? This was 3 a.m., so why are we still outside? Anyway, I guess that's for a different podcast. But in this situation, yeah, I mean, the first thing that happened was the phones come out and we're starting to video things instead of intervening.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage scouts that might be watching this, adult leaders and scouts, is don't do that. If you're in a situation that your action can make a difference in somebody's lives, maybe saving them, then take action.
Absolutely.
There is no sidelining in scouting, okay? Now, at the same time, know what your knowledge is, know what your skill set is, and get involved. And it might be just as simple as getting a bottle of water to somebody who might be in an accident and just comforting them through your words until somebody gets there. But put that cell phone away. If you do anything with it, call 911. Exactly.
That's right.
All right. Okay, check this one out. Vehicles stalled in the desert.
Who would have thought of it? I mean,
So we're asking scouts to think about prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery, vehicles stalled in the desert. Now this one, believe it or not, is something I kind of relate to, because a few years ago, 2005, my family, we went out, my wife and I and our oldest son, who's an Eagle Scout now, adult Eagle Scout. He was 5 at the time, I guess. We went out on a trip out west to the Grand Canyon. And I was surprised when you get out there to some of those western states, how there's nothing. I mean, you go for miles and miles. There's no billboards. There's hardly any traffic. There's no fuel stations. And so you may not be getting stalled out in the desert, but you could get stalled out just in those, very rural western states.
Certainly. Well, again, that just goes back to the preparedness piece, where you think, where am I going to go and what are the conditions that I'm going to be in? Out there could be extreme heat. It could be lack of services available. I used to be on the ski patrol when I was young and fit. And so if you go into an area where you have avalanches, you have, road closures, you could be blocked out there overnight and it's minus 10 degrees in the Rockies. That's not going to go well for you if you run out of fuel.
Right.
So there, be prepared for where you go. In that situation, we always had blankets and we had water and we had snacks and things like that. Even though the Great Smoky Mountains are, very small in the grand scheme of things comparatively. Anyway, doesn't mean we're relieved from the preparedness that we should all always think about before we, go on these, ventures that we're going to think about the rest of our lives. We took our kids to Yosemite, and it's June, but up on top at the highest elevations, the road's closed because snow and ice are melting and sliding and so it's not always as obvious as it might seem that, oh yeah, we're going to be in the desert and it's, so we need an extra can of fuel, or we need some extra bottled water, or whatever it might be.
It might be kind of a rare situation where a scout or family might be stalled out in the desert, but sometimes, and this has happened around here in some places. I think it may have been Kentucky a couple years ago, where there was a car accident or something happened, or a spill, chemical spill, and the cars set on the interstate for like hours and hours and hours.
Right.
And it may have been during the winter, but it goes to the point that it's like, if you're running on an eighth of a tank of fuel and it's the middle of winter, and then you end up getting stalled out and have to sit on the interstate for 6 hours, you got no heat.
A classic example of that was a couple of winters ago, I-95 up in the New York area. You had people in electric cars that were abandoning their vehicles because the battery just ran down, and they're getting in SUVs with people to get warm.
Yeah.
And it's like, this doesn't go with the save the earth concept of an EV, and there's room for that in the process, but there's limitations with different aspects of travel. And but yeah, 100%, that's one of those things where you think about how much duration do I have on a perfect day. A friend of mine in Indiana was talking about a doctor who bought a really I guess one of the nicest Teslas you can get, and drove in to Indianapolis to the hospital. And in the summertime, his range was about 300 miles, so he could go out and back, no big deal. But in the winter last year, when it was 0, the battery performance was reduced by almost half. And so he could only get to work. He couldn't get back home without charging. And when it's 0 and you run out of a way to get there, now you're on Interstate 40 or Interstate 70 in that situation, you're not likely to be where you can't get to safety.
Right.
But preparedness again.
Yeah. Vehicle trapped in a blizzard, similar, desert, obviously different environment, about being prepared and thinking about, like we said earlier, not just being prepared for what you expect, but being prepared for things that are unexpected, like a sudden blizzard or an accident on the interstate where you have to sit for 6 or 8 hours. And if you don't have snacks, especially if you got a car full of kids, you don't have snacks and you're sitting on the interstate for 6 hours, that's a problem.
Yes.
Pack snacks, pack water, prepare for the unexpected.
Yeah.
Backcountry injury. Obviously you talked earlier about going camping, making sure there's things you can do ahead of time. Pre-hydrating, making sure you pack a first aid kit, make sure you have appropriate shoes, take care of your feet. That's a big one we always talk about as scouting. Take care of your feet. Your feet will take care of you.
Yep.
Don't go out in brand new boots that you just bought that haven't been broken in. So things like that.
Absolutely.
Boating, water accident, toxic chemical spills, releases, nuclear power plant emergency.
Yeah.
Holy smoke. Now, I don't know how often scouts are going to encounter something like that, but it does happen.
It does, and because that's a big part of what our company does now, working with power producers. And every time people see a hyperbolic cooling tower, they think of 3 Mile Island and make the assumption that that's a nuclear facility. Well, the truth of the matter is, most of the time it's not. It's just an efficient way to take hot water and get it back down to a normal ambient temperature so it can be recycled through the process and make steam again. But the news, and that's where we get our info, right?
Right.
They'll quickly rush out there and say, oh, the nuclear plant in such and such a location, and it's a coal-fired plant. There's nothing nuclear about it. But if there is, whatever precautions, we could have an issue at Oak Ridge in our neck of the woods. It's not very likely at all, but nonetheless, we could still have one. And if so, the PSAs that get information out to us quickly, we just need to pay attention to. And so.
All right, I'm going to go through kind of quickly the rest of these. Just let me know if you want to say anything to
sure.
these. Fire, explosion in a public place. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. Violence in a public place, obviously riots and stuff. There's been some rioting in the news lately. Wildland fire. We had a big event here just a few years ago, the Gatlinburg fires, which people all over the world, if they were following the news, had heard about those.
Yep.
Avalanche, snow slide or rock slide, earthquake. We don't get many earthquakes in this area, although we had one just a couple months ago.
Right.
Tsunami. We definitely don't get any tsunamis in the area.
No, but
those are that's something
we
where
had a big
it does
alert
impact people.
on the West Coast.
That's true. We did Hawaii and Alaska.
As it turned out, Hawaii got a little bit, and the West Coast of Oregon and California turned out to not be a big thing, but it could have. And so there was an alert system that got everybody thinking about it, and that's part of preparedness, is first of all engaging your brain as to what may be happening.
Yeah.
So thankfully it didn't turn out to be much, but that was collateral damage from earthquake in Japan, maybe.
Yeah. Somewhere off the coast of Japan.
Yeah, and here we are all the way across the Pacific Ocean, so it doesn't have to be near us. Last year, as an example, this time of the year, Asheville had terrible floods from a tropical storm that came into Florida 1,000 miles to the south.
Yeah.
But yet it regathered
Yeah.
strength, and once in 100 years kind of event.
And that's the next one, major flooding, flash flood with water outage. The flash flood, there was a few months ago in Texas, I guess it was a few months ago,
in the
where there was
summer
a
camps.
Christian camp that was just completely destroyed. There was a
Yes.
lot of loss of life due to flash flood. I'm not sure the situation there or how closely you followed it, if there were some things that they could have done to have prevented, or at least prepare, shall I say.
I think so, but you think about it, once you got to the backstory, and that was President Bush, his wife, went to camp there as a child. So
been
for
around for a while.
60
Yeah.
years, they've been doing it the same way, but that doesn't mean that it's still best practice.
Yeah.
What happened upstream that allowed for this flood? Something differently. It rains every year, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, it was so-called a perfect storm, where the flash flood, ruined something that had been, apparently in good shape for the last, half century.
Something I heard was, I guess, in an attempt to kind of dismiss that they weren't prepared, was somebody had said, well, this was a flood of the century, once in 100 years. And my initial thought was, so what are you saying? Are we saying once every 100 years we're willing to accept a tragedy of this nature?
Right.
But to me it says, as we think about preparedness, okay, it may only happen once every 100 years, but that tells me we know it's going to happen.
Right.
Right?
It's foreseeable.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, hurricane with power outage. Obviously, our scouting units down in Florida are familiar with hurricanes, more so than up here in East Tennessee. Tornado, we get a decent amount of tornadoes, or at least warnings in this area.
I think about hurricanes, and of course we've done training in the Virgin Islands for years and years and years, and this is hurricane season, and you can see them spinning off of Africa and coming your way.
Yeah.
And for days and days and days that they're working their way to the west, and they're traveling at 15 miles an hour, maybe, something like that. And yet, you still have loss of life, and you can't really fix the property damage piece because you can't move the houses and the buildings and things out of the way, but you can move the people to safety. And one one year we had one that came right over the Virgin Islands, and I got to speak at the fire chiefs meeting for the whole Caribbean area, talking about the response part of that deal. And somebody else got the fun part, the preparedness piece. And the response is you spend all this money and pile up all these resources, and you train people for something you hope never happens.
Right.
But when it happens, then you kick in the training, you apply all the techniques that you've learned, and at that point, all that prep is worth it. So, we can't afford it is oftentimes what's said. Same thing happened in the Midwest, where they put 1,000 power poles and several hundred miles worth of cable in there because tornadoes knocked all that stuff down as they went across Ohio and Indiana, and they filled up warehouses full of these things. Preparation for the next time.
Yeah. And finally, lightning storm.
Yeah.
So there were 21 scenarios where scouts need to learn about ways to prevent in the protection, mitigation, response, and recovery for those. So obviously when they're being taught the merit badge, they're going into some pretty good levels of granularity. But are there any other scenarios that weren't mentioned in here that you think would be good to add?
Well, what I would say with most, when you do the size up part of emergency response, almost never would it be just one line item. It'll be, this happened, a flood, and then the flood caused hazardous materials to be released, or it caused
Power
outages. It caused people to be stranded in their homes, and water rescues, and even sometimes you see fires when there's water all around the house. How could there be a fire? Well, there just is.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is you have these sort of collateral damage things that one of these things may be the trigger, but you may end up where a half a dozen of these things are part of the ultimately big part of the response.
You mentioned earlier earthquake that caused a tsunami.
Right.
Hurricanes where tornadoes spin off from those.
Yep, that ultimately find their way to Asheville and cause the flooding that it shouldn't be able to get there, but it did.
Yeah. Okay, we're on number 3 here, planning for family emergencies. So scouts are encouraged to, at a family meeting, discuss situations that were created for requirement 2B, which we just talked about, and make emergency plans for sheltering in place and for evacuation at their home. So they're asked to sit down with their family and talk about, if any of these situations happen, how do we shelter in place, and then how do we evacuate from our home?
Right.
Important part of the
100%. I mean, you've got the alert that there's a tornado, or yesterday we had on the bottom of our screen flash flood potential for this county or that sort of thing. And the other thing that we always think about is shelter in place, as you mentioned. Okay, but the other piece is, if the problem is our home, it's on fire, evacuation. If you're in a 3-bedroom rancher and you happen to be on the far end and the fire's in the kitchen and it blocks you off from getting out, the home we grew up in was a second story out of those bedrooms. And so a rope ladder or some sort of something where you weren't just 4 feet from the ground, you were 14 feet from the ground. So preparedness for that, change your clock, change your battery. We have gone now to where our smoke detectors, and sometimes they have heat detection or carbon monoxide, but they have a 10-year battery in them now. which is great, and we're not having to put a 9-volt battery in there every October during fire protection week. But we still need to check them, make sure they're still functional.
Yeah, and that goes back to the really plays into prevention and protection of that.
Yep.
All right. Develop and practice a plan of escape for your family in case of a fire, which is a great thing to do. Talks about having a floor plan, mapping that out so everybody's on the same page, what happens. And then 3C, using a checklist pamphlet, prepare and inspect a family disaster kit for sheltering in place.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it makes me think of those, I guess you see this a lot out Midwest, Kansas, actual tornado, sheltering in place. It's like, the opening of the Wizard of Oz, where you go and everybody ran into the
storm shelter.
Storm shelter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's certainly part of it. I saw, I don't know what channel it was on, but it talked about Oklahoma being in the middle of the breadbasket, but they went on to say, and it has more active tornadoes than any other state year after year, and so that becomes part of your life. When you hear the tornado siren in your little town, you know what to do. You either go to an inside room, or you go into the basement, or you go into the storm shelter, but you have a plan. You already, so absolutely.
All these that we talked about in 2B, those 21 different scenarios, what I did not see is a zombie apocalypse.
Well, and I think when you're in sheltered in place, you should have that game so that you can play that to occupy your time until you get the all clear.
I would love to have one of these in that scenario,
and be able to shoot some kind of special
flamethrower
sauce on them that would kill them. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, number 4, preventing accidents and emergencies. Now, in this case, and you'll see this a lot in merit badges, where it will tell the scouts they just have to do one of these, but they can certainly do both of them, but they just have to do one. Using a home safety checklist included in the merit badge, inspect a home. So they're asked to actually take, and I think there's this right here, this is a sample home safety checklist, which is like 3 pages long.
Yeah.
And do an inventory of their home. Good exercise for the scouts to do.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we become acclimated or accustomed to our clutter. And clutter is additional fuel for fires, it's obstacles for evacuation, it's unhealthiness, because some of that stuff is trash and it's rotting and so on and so forth. There's really nothing good that comes from that. But in emergency services, unfortunately, we see that. And sometimes the people mean well, but in their older age, they just physically can't, get stuff cleaned out, cleared out, consistently, persistently. And some people are just hoarders, and that's real. But it's a dangerous thing, because all of that extra, it makes it more dangerous for the first responders, and it certainly makes it more dangerous for the inhabitants. Yeah.
And then 4B, develop emergency prevention plans, not for the home, but 5 family activities outside the home. And it gives some examples here. If you're going to a beach, if you're going to visit a relative, you're going to see a movie, if you're at a place of worship. I know we go to church together. Our church, I think, has a team, a security team.
Yep.
There's unfortunately there are school shootings and there have been church shootings, and having a team that's prepared for something like that, it's good.
Non-custodial parents,
right,
is also another thing where you need to feel, at school or at church, or that you're safe, and that you can, for that hour or couple hours that you're there, that you know that that's taken care of. And what you would like for our scouts to be able to do would be to see that in action and realize that that's necessary, and here's a method that at their school, at their church, at whatever, that works. And so they can mimic that, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to acknowledge that, that's well done.
Yeah. All right. Number 5, dangerous situations. So this is a little kind of tied in, but different a little bit, in that it talks about showing how you could save a person from the following dangerous situations. Live household electric fire, structure filled with carbon monoxide, clothes on fire, and drowning using non-swimming rescues.
So all of those things are things that should be almost redundant. I mean, we know them, but we're swimming at a lake. Do we have a ring that we can throw to somebody? Do we have the ability to get them without us getting into a current, if it's a river or if it's a rip tide that we heard about as the last storm went past the East Coast, and for 200 miles they said no one get in the water. I mean, how can that be? Well, because people die every year in rip tides. So 100%, that stuff should be there, but we need to verify that it is there.
That's one that's not on here, is riptide, actually. When we talked about 2B, that was not one of the ones listed, surprisingly.
Sharks in the water were listed?
Sharks in the water, no.
Well, this summer, in the Hilton Head area, they had several bites, and so there was a lot of times where for the whole day they had people out of the water, or no couldn't get in past your knees or whatever. So,
and I think I read somewhere that most shark attacks actually happen in 4 feet of water.
Yeah.
3 to 4 feet of water, rather than way out in the deep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. That's that. We talked about that. Number 6, signaling for help. There are 3 parts to this. Show 3 ways of attracting and communicating with rescue aircraft or drones. B, show ways to attract attention of searchers on the ground if you're lost in the wilderness. And then C, show ways to attract attention of searchers on the water if you're stranded with a capsized or disabled motorboat. So you're in a situation, you need help. And it could be on the water, it could be on the ground. We all, I think about the movie, what was it, the Tom Hanks movie where he was in a FedEx plane and it crashed?
Yes.
But he's using the coconuts or the rocks to say SOS or things like that.
And having a fire ready to ignite when you see, those are real things. And then there's some controversy there, like, for instance, should you have a flare with you? That might be something that you could signal with. It also might be something that catches the forest on fire. So there's some controversy on some of those things as well. And if it's battery powered, how often do you check those batteries, and can you, if you check them and it shows it's in the green, what percentage of life is left on that battery?
Right.
So there's variables that go into all of those things for sure.
Number 7 talks about moving an injured person. You talked earlier about the lady that you had pulled out. I assume that there was some sort of quick evaluation you did to make sure you weren't going to do more harm, but at the same time, you mentioned the woof.
Yeah, because the engine compartment was on fire.
Yeah.
And it had not encroached into the passenger compartment yet, but it was a significant fire. And so there wasn't a whole lot of that. Although I will say they did pay special attention to keeping the C-spine as immobilized as possible. But the first thing was move her from the imminent danger. So, yeah.
And then number 8 talks about the National Incident Management System, or NIMS. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Sure.
And the Incident Command System, ICS. And just learning about that, I'd assume that's probably something important that Scouts should do.
Well, it is, because what they have to do primarily is they have to understand that as first responders arrive, ambulance or fire truck or police officers, when they first get there, they're all required to function within the Incident Command System, or the NIMS, National Incident Management System, just for coordination and so they should understand that somebody's going to be pecking them on the shoulder and saying, okay, we've got this structure in place here, tell us what you've done, and then we're going to put a firefighter or a paramedic in place to, continue the whatever it is. So yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Number 9, we're almost done here. Emergency service. Discuss with your counselor the duties that a scout troop should be prepared to do. So this is not at the individual level, but at the unit level, an entire troop. The training they need, the safety precautions they should take for the following emergency services, and it mentions several: crowd and traffic control. Number 2, messenger service during an incident. 3, collection and distribution services. And 4, group feeding, shelter, and sanitation. So these are things that, a scout unit might be called in as a support type of entity to come in and distribute water bottles or food, help with, traffic control.
Well, and the prevention side of this happens, I think of a NASCAR race where there's 100,000 people coming to Bristol for the race. They might use scouts in their uniforms with the batons to help with orderly parking, but even more so orderly exiting, because that's when people sort of lose their mind.
Right.
But several years ago, we were flying into Oshkosh for the big EAA fly-in up there with 25,000 literally other airplanes, and they had scouts on the runway that were telling you where to park and all that sort of thing, because even though they're young, having that uniform on and being able to do, fundamental task is very important. And an orderly process, preparedness, eliminates all or most of the emergencies. That's what we're going for.
9B talks about having a written plan for the troop to mobilize in the event of an emergency service. Mobilization. I assume that's important. I assume you do that with
100%.
AERT.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with communication. It's one thing to be prepared. It's another thing to be available, and available in a timely way. So, you could do all the preparation, all the classes, and all that kind of stuff, but if you never hear about the need for the response, okay, you're not a bad person because of that. But if you had the ability, today, our fire service and other agencies use something called WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And so that allows you to contact a whole group of people instantly with a simultaneous message, okay? And it might be you're all at camp and you just got the word that the river's rising and we need to get everybody not only out of the water, but we need to get to higher ground.
Right.
And we can mobilize, we can, let people know instantly, but that's sort of where it all starts with excellent communication, because prep is one thing, but mobilization or giving people instant knowledge of what's impending, what's happening, what's upstream in that analogy is super important.
9B talks about preparing and inspecting a personal emergency service pack for a mobilization call. What is an emergency service pack? I guess it's all the stuff you might need in that scenario.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And some of that could well be provided on ongoing basis. You think about Asheville. I mean, that went on for months. Every day you would have, and you know, when I was young and fit, I was on a forestry response team in California, and every morning we would come up, and there's a group of 21 in our group, which was divided into 3 groups of 7. So one was the senior guy, and the other 2 of us. So it could get broken down into groups of 7 or whatever. But we would every morning, 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, go to a meeting, and they talked about, okay, this is what we're going to do for the day, and here's the provisions. If you're a ground pounder, as they called us, you know, you need to take X amount of water with you. You need to either have your meals, your MREs, whatever it is, with you, or you can plan for a rendezvous. So they were already thinking ahead. Somebody worked overnight to make sure that those provisions were in place, and that the first responders had what they needed to be successful.
All right. And number, 9D talks about taking part in an emergency service project, either a real one or a practice exercise. So that's a drill, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if it's, I guess it's like the schools, they go through the
Active shooter.
Yeah,
thing.
it's like the more you do it, if you don't have those drills, then it's not second nature to you.
Right.
Really.
You think about the active shooter that was in New York last month. You know, he's walking down the boulevard with a long gun in his hand, and he goes into a building and goes up to the 21st floor. He shoots the guard on the way in, gets on the elevator. What's their plan? I mean, would you have ever thought on that particular day that somebody's coming to? No, I mean, but everybody should have had a plan.
Yeah.
You know, on September 11th, when they flew planes into the buildings, did you have a plan? You know, some did, some jumped.
Yeah.
And then, you know, 341 to be exact, died going in to take care of those folks, you know. And so preparation, it can't solve every problem, but it oftentimes will greatly minimize the loss of life or the injuries.
And finally, number 10, there's a couple options here. Scouts only have to do one. They can interview an emergency service coordinator or a civil servant about their work, just to become familiar with somebody who's actually doing it, which is kind of what we're doing today. They can do B, rather, identify 3 career opportunities that would use skills and knowledge in emergency services, or they can do C, identify how they might use the skills and knowledge in this field to pursue a personal hobby and or healthy lifestyle. Let's just focus in on the careers. Obviously, you've made a career out of it.
Yeah.
Careers that come to mind in emergency preparedness. I mean, you talk about firefighters.
You could, I mean, firefighters, emergency medical people, whether that's an EMT, a paramedic, it could be a doctor or nurse that works in the emergency department, for sure. It could be
Lifeguard.
Lifeguard, absolutely. Police officers, in a lot of places, you know, having an EMT as a baseline for the entire community of emergency responders puts everybody on the same equal playing field from that base level. Yeah, and that's some of that has to do with need. Like at some of the power plants we work at, they do little or nothing. They do just some basic fire extinguisher work and maybe CPR, first aid, AED, where other people do a full-blown emergency responder program that takes a week or more of training every year. And the reason most of the time is because if they have somebody right outside a fire station or an ambulance, whatever, that's immediately available, they'll figure out, what's reasonable or necessary.
Yeah. So there's a lot packed in here. I mean,
Yeah.
this is some good stuff. And I, as a person who is not a trained emergency response, not on your staff or in that field, it seems like this is a robust merit badge, and they've covered a lot of things in here.
Well,
Is there
it really,
anything that's
it really is,
missed?
because the other piece that goes along with this is these are young people that haven't experienced a lot of things that provide depth to each one of these line items. And so while they're smart and you can speak intelligently about each one of these, thankfully they will not have experienced a lot of this stuff that we would have, in our span of adult life. So you have kind of different aspects of that. Things that you've experienced through a real emergency or through training allow you to move from thinking about it to doing it. I mean, it's an instinct, and when you get to that level, then you're going to make good decisions, and that's really what it's all. It's problem solving. Now, we tell people in emergency services, and this is maybe counterintuitive, be selfish. Okay? And what we mean by that is, if you don't take care of you, then you can't take care of me. So if you rush right in and another example, paramedic of the year a few years ago in Ohio comes up on a wreck and puts his hand on the car to talk to the people inside and is electrocuted and dies. So down power lines. I mean, you think about the very first day of my EMT training, I can remember Rick Griggs, who was my instructor, and he came into class every day and he put his hand up like that and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm overviewing the scene." And here's this guy, best paramedic in the state of Ohio, dead right there because he completed that circuit where there was down power line. So if it can happen to him, it can happen to all of us. And so that's the big picture. The take home is make sure that you look at the whole scene and that you have a reasonable ability to help with the solution and not become part of the problem.
It reminds me, I mean, you've done a lot of traveling, flying. What the flight attendant says when the oxygen drops, first
put
take
it
care
on
of
yourself.
and then help those around you. Have you? This is what you do for a living. This is what you live and breathe. Do you find yourself just like when we talked about a home stovetop or oven fire? Do you find yourself walking into homes or just offices and your antenna is just immediately up evaluating and seeing things like that are jumping out saying that's not a safe situation?
A classic thing that I see, when I visit somebody's home or I'm someplace for the first time, is a fire extinguisher that's on the wall immediately beside the target hazard. It's right by the gas range or whatever, instead of it being, outside the kitchen proper so that you can grab that extinguisher and pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep and then go in and do your work. Because if it's too close, so we see stuff like that, or I see an extinguisher that's in the red, because it's one thing to have an extinguisher, it's even better to have one that works.
And they have to be,
they've got a gauge.
They're only good for a certain number of years, right?
That's right, yeah.
All right. Anything else in closing thoughts that come to mind about this?
It's just encouraging. as we hire people, a lot of people that work for us that have gone on to work at the FBI, or now they're fire chiefs, or they're paramedics, started in the Scouts. And it helps them to kind of focus beyond themselves and think, we like to say, have your head on a swivel, so that you can try to see what's coming, even if it's not obviously right in front of you. And those are the people that oftentimes make a difference in our communities. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
your time.
All right. Very good.
All right, so let's head out here with Jody to the back of the office here. All right, so we're behind your office building here, and you got some stuff back here. Hey.
Yeah, we our little niche in the market is we do the training at the facility most of the time. So you saw a picture of us at Hoover Dam. It's sort of cost prohibitive for them to send 20 of their people to Knoxville, Tennessee.
Right.
Instead, we send our people to them, and we typically have either, like, these are shipping containers that are customized inside, or the handrails will come up and you can, as the standards call for, demonstrate annually the skills you're expected to perform. And that's what we do with this. We have our own semi, and this trailer over here is designed to pick up the simulators and drop them where they need to be. And there's normally two other semi-trailers that are configured for confined space rescue, but thankfully they're out being used as we speak. And then we also have one on the west side of the country that stays, and it almost never comes home, and that's also a good thing because it's busy training people at some of the dams like Hoover Dam and Parker and Davis and that whole group of dams. So anyway.
So when you say simulators in these containers,
Yeah.
I mean, what would we expect to find in there?
So the OSHA standard calls for, like for instance, by definition, the confined space rescue is something that's not designed for continuous human occupancy. Okay, in other words, it doesn't have a doorway like a normal door. It might have inwardly converging walls like a hopper or something like that could have coal or corn or soybeans or you name it, basically in there. And so inside the simulators, we have all of those different mock-ups so that they can target hazards that the customer actually has. We can simulate so they can say, okay, this is just like over here in plant 3 where we have this entry that we have to do with our maintenance people. And so they can practice that without having to stop their operation and do whatever, because typically when they stop their operation, it costs them money.
Sure.
And so their maintenance people typically are the ones that we train, and when they stop their operation, it's because the maintenance people are super busy. So that's the niche that we try to serve with them.
All right.
A scout is friendly, and so is Griffin. In fact, he'd invite you to his house for dinner sometime, but you'd never survive the journey to get there.